evening, keluarga Malaysia. You're watching News at 10. I'm Shuhaida Arifin, making the headlines tonight. Tabling of 2023 budget moved to 7 October. Implementation of shorter working hours pushed to next year. Budget 2023 will now be tabled in the Dewan Rakyat on 7 October, 3 weeks earlier than initially scheduled. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Parliament and Law, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, however, denied any links between the change in sitting date and the rumoured snap general election, which UMNO is pushing for to be held this year.
Perdana Menteri menggunakan kuasanya di bawah Peraturan 11/2 Peraturan Majlis Dewan Rakyat. Jadi pada pagi ini saya bentangkan kertas nota kabinet. Tarikh itu telah ditukarkan kepada persidangan itu ditukar kepada 3 hari bulan dan belanjawan adalah dibentang pada 7 hari bulan Oktober. Itu saja.
The upcoming Dewan Rakyat sitting was initially scheduled to take place between 28 October and 15 December, and the current leadership has until September next year to call a general election. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Semasa placed down speculation over the decisions to bring the tabling of Budget 2023 forward by 3 weeks, saying this was normal practice. Speaking to reporters after launching the Usaha Niaga Keluarga Malaysia program in Kuala Lumpur today, he pointed out that the country's fifth Prime Minister, Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, had also brought the tabling of the annual federal budget forward when he was Prime Minister.
Dulu waktu zaman Pala bulan September pun.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob placed down a speculation about the budget 2023 being voted by 3 weeks later. Now we're moving on to the next news. Enforcement of amendments to the Employment Act 1995, which was initially to come into effect this 1st September, has instead been postponed to 1st January next year. Human Resources Minister Datuk Seri M. Saravanan said the matter was decided in a cabinet meeting after industry players and employers unanimously agreed on the postponement due to several factors.
Walau bagaimanapun sebelum penguatkuasaan saya sebagai menteri dipertanggungjawabkan perkara ini telah adakan pelbagai sesi perbincangan semua stakeholder, khususnya pihak industri, FMM, MMF dan semua pihak industri termasuk Dewan-Dewan Perniagaan. Dan sebulan suara saya telah terima permintaan daripada pihak industri bahawa mereka perlukan sedikit masa lagi di mana kita dalam keadaan pemulihan ekonomi yang begitu penting dan mereka telah merayu kepada kementerian supaya kita menangguhkan penguatkuasaan.
Among the contents of the amendments are increased maternal leaves from 60 to 98 days, fixed 7 days of parental leave, as well as reduced working hours from 48 hours to 45 hours a week. Industries are still facing labour shortage due to the slow intake of foreign workers. Datuk Seri Saravanan, however, ensured that the amendments will come into effect on 1st January next year, no matter what excuses may be provided by employers. On 21st March, the Dewan Rakyat approved the amendments of the Employment Act 1955. As of 5th August, the government has channelled 20.941 billion ringgit to 357,948 employers through the Wage Subsidy Program PSU. Overall, the initiative has helped to maintain the employment of 2.96 million local workers. In the 108th Laporan Kewangan Rakyat, Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz said PSU has successfully reduced the rate of unemployment amongst local workers. Approved wage subsidy applications have already reached 12.95 billion ringgit under the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package Prihatin and the National Economic Recovery Plan Penjana. Another 1.4 billion ringgit was distributed via PSU 2.0 package Kita Prihatin, while a further 3.77 billion ringgit under PSU 3.0 was channeled through Budget 2021. Additionally, under PSU 4.0, 164,004 employers received 2.579 billion ringgit to retain 1.92 million workers. The minister added that 219.65 million ringgit was channeled to 8,018 employers to maintain the employment of 123,759 workers under PSU 5.0 during the period. The Malaysian Insolvency Department suggested amendments to be done onto Section 33C of the Insolvency Act, Act 360, in regard to automatic discharge from bankruptcy after 3 years. Minister the Prime Minister's Department of Parliament and Law, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, said the proposed amendment was to help more bankrupt people get out of bankruptcy after 3 years. In a statement today, he said the department also proposed to set a time limit for the filing of the proof of debts form by creditors to speed up the process of bankruptcy discharge. Also proposed is the use of more long-distance communication technologies in bankruptcy administration matters, which can help bankrupts deal with the insolvency department online. The proposals would be studied by the Legal Affairs Division and the Attorney General's Chamber and discussed in engagement sessions with stakeholders before finalised. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi said bankruptcy statistics showed a declining pattern this year. He said this is due to several factors, including the government's initiative through loan moratoriums and targeted assistance by banks. The formulation of a National Environmental, Social and Governance ESG framework for the manufacturing sectors is in the works, in line with Malaysia's net zero greenhouse gas emissions target by 2050. Senior International Trade and Industry Meeting Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali said the ESG framework will be formulated based on consultation and engagement with local and international stakeholders involved in the manufacturing, regulatory and financial sectors. He said MITI will provide a framework to mainstream ESG elements for the manufacturing sector, which will include 4 main components, namely ESG standards, financial support and incentives, capacity building, and market mechanisms, including carbon trading and carbon pricing. The senior minister noted that the progress of the framework would be dependent on the level of achievement in engagement and collaboration with stakeholders. Along with the National Investment Aspirations Goals, he said MITI will intensify its focus on sectors such as the digital economy, electrical and electronic, pharmaceuticals, chemicals and aerospace that have a significant economic potential and sustainable long-term benefits. Starting 1st September, Sarawak Malaysia My Second Home SMM2H pass holders are allowed to work or be involved in active investment and businesses while in the state. Sarawak Tourism, Creative Industry and Performing Art Minister Datuk Seri Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah said this is one of the 3 refinements proposed for the enhanced requirements and regulations of the SMM2H program to ensure it would continue to benefit the state.
In addition to that, participants of SMM2H are allowed to work, be employed or involved in active investment and business during participation duration of this program, subject to the following terms and conditions, whereby there must be professionals, there must be investors, and also subject to approval from the state government of Sarawak. The previous, before this, applicants are not allowed to work in Sarawak. Now we have slightly opened the routes.
Speaking at a press conference in Kuching today, the minister said the SMH2H pass holders are also expected to stay in Sarawak for at least 30 days annually, compared to 15 days before, as one of the conditions to get an extension or renewal of their visas. Still ahead, K9 implementation can address orang asli student dropout issues.
Kejayaan negara pada hari ini adalah hasil muafakat serta usaha perjuangan kita secara berterusan bagi melihat sebuah negara bangsa yang berdaulat, sejahtera dan maju. Nilai jati diri yang tersemat kukuh di jiwa menjadi tunjang kekuatan kita bagi menjaga keselamatan dan kesejahteraan negara tercinta. Suasana keharmonian, kesetiaan dan perpaduan dalam keluarga Malaysia yang dipamerkan membuktikan betapa kita perlu mengukuhkan semangat patriotisme daripada diganggu pelbagai anasir dari dalam maupun luar. Oleh itu adalah penting untuk kita terus menyuburkan semangat cintakan negara selaras dengan prinsip-prinsip rukun negara yang telah sebati dalam jiwa sanubari. Hormatilah prinsip yang berjaya menyatupadukan kita semua sebagai sebuah keluarga untuk saling bantu-membantu dan melindungi antara satu sama lain. Demi tanah air, demi anak bangsa, ayuh keluarga Malaysia. Bersama-samalah kita menyemarakkan lagi sambutan bulan kemerdekaan dengan mengibarkan jalur gemilang di rumah, bangunan pejabat, bangunan perniagaan, bahkan di kenderaan kita. Sematkan di hati dengan semangat patriotisme untuk mempertingkatkan lagi keamanan, kemakmuran dan kesejahteraan negara tercinta demi keluarga Malaysia. Selamat menyambut Hari Kebangsaan 2022. Merdeka, merdeka, merdeka.
The implementation of the Comprehensive Special Model Schools for Year 9 K9 is an initiative to address the issue of school dropouts among the Orang Asli community. Deputy Education Minister Dr. Mahang Soon said the government always places emphasis on education for the Orang Asli community by various initiatives, including the implementation of the special model for Year 9 students. Speaking to reporters after attending the Smart Classroom Solution program in Sungai Perak today, Dr. Mah said through the K9 model, Orang Asli student need to complete 9 years in the same school, that is from Standard 1 to Form 3, with daily boarding provided for those who live far from school.
Jadi buat masa ini, Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia juga telah berusaha selain daripada K9, kita nak wujudkan K11, K11 bermaksud 6 tahun pada peringkat sekolah rendah campur dengan 5 tahun, iaitu tingkatan 1 hingga tingkatan 5 bersekali dalam satu kompaun sekolah rendah. Jadi biasanya akan kita bina bangunan yang baru, bangunan tambahan, dengan guru-guru yang ada dan sebagainya.
Earlier, Dr. Mah said in his speech that the Education Ministry always welcomed collaboration or corporate social responsibility programs with various parties that is targeted towards quality and holistic education. The Women, Family and Community Development Ministry, KPWKM, has allocated 9.5 million ringgit in preparation for the monsoon season this year. The allocation was distributed to the Social Welfare Department, JKM, for flood management purposes, such as the provision of food, blankets and other necessities for flood victims. According to its Deputy Minister, Datuk Siti Zailah Muhammad Yusof, precautionary measures are also currently being done to face any floods beyond the boundaries of expectations. A total of 7,000 JKM personnel nationwide were also ready to carry out disaster management duties in the affected states.
Negeri-negeri yang tidak berisiko banjir pun sekarang dah terdedah dengan banjir. Mungkin kita akan pertimbangkan juga dengan termasuk juga teknologi terbaru. Mungkin sebab itu juga satu keperluan ketika banjir, sebab kadang-kadang apabila berlaku banjir secara mendadak, kita tak sempat menyediakan barang mentah dan sebagainya. Jadi pengalaman-pengalaman yang lalu itulah mungkin kita ambil bagaimana untuk bersiap.
A man was charged in the Kuala Lumpur Magistrates Court in connection with a protest gathering on the Littoral Combat Ship LCS issues at the federal capital. The accused, Amir Hariri Abdul Hadi, who is also the Malaysia United Democratic Alliance MUDA Secretary General, however pleaded not guilty before Magistrate Fardiana Haryanti Ahmad Razali. According to the charge sheet, Amir Hariri, as the organizer of the gathering, had failed to inform the police officer in charge of Dangwangi district 5 days before holding the assembly in front of the Sogo complex in Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman on 14 August this year. The charge was framed under Section 9, Subsection 1 of the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012, which carries a maximum fine of RM10,000 under Section 9, Subsection 5 of the same Act upon conviction. Lawyer Beatrice Chin Yuan Sin, representing the accused, asked for a bail to be set at RM500 to RM1,000 as her client was not working. The court granted him bail of RM4,000 in one surety and fixed 3rd November this year for mention. Coming up in our foreign segment, Pakistan declares emergency as millions affected by floods. Heavy rain pounded parts of Pakistan today after the government declared an emergency to deal with monsoon flooding that it said had affected more than 4 million people. Climate Change Minister Sherry Rahman, who on Wednesday called the floods as a catastrophe of epic scale, said the government had declared an emergency and appealed for international assistance. The National Disaster Management Agency said that more than 900 people had been killed this year, including 34 in the last 24 hours, as a result of the monsoon rain that began in June. The disaster agency said over 4.2 million people were affected by the flooding, with nearly 220,000 homes destroyed and 500,000 more badly damaged. The worst-hit areas are Balochistan and Sindh in the south and west, but almost all of Pakistan has suffered this year. The annual monsoon is essential for irrigating crops and replenishing lakes and dams across the Indian subcontinent, but each year it also brings a wave of destruction. Officials say this year's floods are comparable to 2010, the worst on record, when over 2,000 people died and nearly a fifth of the country was underwater. Britain has announced a vast 80% hike in electricity and gas bills in a dramatic worsening of the cost of living crisis before winter as the UK awaits a new leader. Regulator of GEM said its energy price cap, which sets prices for consumers who are not on a fixed deal with their supplier, will in October increase to an average £3,549 sterling per year from the current £1,971 sterling, blaming soaring wholesale gas costs after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It said the increase reflects the continued rise in global wholesale